Hello, and welcome to the Ceeview webinar on driving business optimization with intelligent observability. My name is Paul Sexauer. I'm with Ceeview and serve as Managing Director for the Americas. I'm joined by our strategic channel partner of 15 years, Mr. René Durst, founder and CEO of his Swiss-based firm, Ascentix, and also joined by my colleague who is based in Oslo, Norway, lead engineer, Mr. Gutorm Husveg. René will be sharing 4 success stories. The first being his company, which is a user and a solution provider of Ceeview. René will share success stories from 3 featured clients, including the largest protection and rescue agency in Switzerland, the second largest provider of mobility services in Switzerland, and the 4th largest canton forming the Swiss Federation. I will follow René and share a cloud cost management success story for a top business building firm headquartered in Oslo. Each of these organizations provide mission-critical services that Ceeview has uniquely monitored for optimized operations and business performance. Following our success stories, Gutorm will provide a demonstration of Ceeview cloud cost control and service monitoring. If you have any questions during the webinar, please use the chat facility to the left of your viewer, and our team will respond promptly following this webinar. For some, Ceeview may be a new name in the monitoring and observability community, but don't let that fool you. The team behind our platform has a famed history to support your success. As you can see on this slide, there are several recognized brands that the same Oslo-based team has founded, and its technology continues to deliver value in the market today. The team's first-generation tool, Sysnet, solved unified administration and monitoring of distributed systems when there were dozens of variants through the 90s. It was acquired by Boole & Babbage to become Ensign, and then consumed into the BMC portfolio through their acquisition of Boole & Babbage. The team didn't rest there. Their second-generation product solved unified monitoring upon the emergence of the cloud. Born as Nimbus in 2000, it merged with its US reseller partner to become Nimsoft. After years of customer uptake, north of 400 strong customers, including MSPs and enterprises across industries and the globe, Nimsoft was acquired by CA Technologies and renamed to CAUIM. Today, that same foundational Nimsoft technology is in the market as Broadcom DXIM. Again, the team didn't retire in its rewards. Ceeview, their 3rd-generation platform, solves the need for unified digital experience monitoring. It was launched in 2018 with its differentiated service modeling, with SLA compliance analytics, and cloud cost management, all of which are powered by the Ceeview Observability Core. The platform has high adaptability to support customers' unique business service environments and optimize operations. You will see interesting examples of this in this webinar. Taking a closer look at the Ceeview Intelligent Observability Platform, key capabilities that support operations and business optimization include service and business process monitoring, application monitoring, infrastructure monitoring, cost and budget monitoring, as well as SLA monitoring and reporting. Central to these capabilities is flexible service modeling with analytics, observing service-centric KPIs against SLOs with SLA definition, SLA compliance analytics, and reporting. Ceeview's strength includes end-to-end data integration involving business-unique systems and services, whether they be on the ground, the air, or at sea, also including on-premise and cloud-based applications and resources. The Ceeview Intelligent Observability Platform gives you a unique top-down view of your business services, user experiences, SLA compliance, and cost control. By focusing monitoring on key points of business engagement, process flows, and resources, and analyzing KPIs such as response time, process output, and cost utilization, organizations can optimize their systems, teams, and business for better business outcomes. We're excited to share customer success examples and a demonstration so you can see Ceeview value for your own organization. We hope you will find this webinar helpful and informative, and we certainly thank you for joining us today. At this point, I'd like to hand over to Mr. Rene Durst, CEO of longtime strategic partner at Centix, to share a word about his business, why he chose Ceeview in the first place, and 3 service-focused customer success stories. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Paul. And thank you all for giving me the opportunity to share our experience with Ceeview over the past years. So before I start doing that, I would like to briefly introduce our company. So the company is a Swiss-based company, and we deliver solutions, as we call it, solutions to improve end user experience. Our goal is to deliver those solutions with the focused area of monitoring and integration. Integration in respect of monitoring comes into play when we integrate third-party data with a platform to create a single point of truth. This leads to our portfolio, which is built on 2 pillars, on 2 main pillars. That includes products that is the monitoring product is Ceeview. Ceeview is our monitoring product of our choice since 2019, and one gateway for all our integration needs. Additionally, we offer services necessary to support customers across the life cycle of a project. Saying that, I would like to go over to why we have chosen Ceeview. And I see Centix not just as a Ceeview partner, but also as a Ceeview customer. Therefore, before introducing you to a few customer Ceeview cases, please give me a moment to talk about our motivation to look for a new monitoring product and why we have chosen Ceeview to be part of our portfolio. Therefore, I need to go back a little bit in time and start back in 2005, where we were a partner of the mentioned Nimsoft from Paul before, and we served over the years about 35 customers in and around Switzerland. Nevertheless, back in 2018, we started looking for a new monitoring product driven by 2 main factors. The factors were, on one side, change of focus on the Nimsoft product. For all familiar with Nimsoft, hey, I mean, this was a great product, but over the years, due to the ownership change, Nimsoft focus has shifted. So how can I say that? Best, maybe the focus shifted towards the Fortune 500, with all the consequences that are involved with such a shift. So I don't want to go into details on that. I think most of the people in the audience will know what I mean with that. And I would go on more at about 5 years ago, we realized that also, and this is the second part of the reason why we have chosen to look for another product. And this was our customer's journey. We experience that transformation in customer needs, motivated by a growing number of applications in the cloud, and somewhat making infrastructure monitoring less relevant. And on the other hand, there was, or there is still, an increasing demand for service monitoring to meet the business need required by the IT. I now like to move on to the reason why we have chosen the product Ceeview, which can be split in technical advantages and, as I call it, soft factors. The technical aspect listed were important to us back then and have proven to give us the freedom to address current needs, but also address needs we did not know at the given time. These aspects can be subsumed to service modeling architecture, to modularity, and to extensibility. And these are the factors that I would like to explain you a little closer in the following use cases. But for us, on the other hand, the soft factors as a partner are essential to empower our team to support the life cycle of a solution from sales over implementation to operation. And I would like to point out just the last bullet here named innovation beyond product level. Innovation is typically understood for product innovation, but for us at Essentics, the word can be expanded beyond that. Maybe we could also call it creativity. And what I mean with that, to us, it was very essential when we have chosen to go with Ceeview, that not just the technology, but also the process of selling. And during operation, we need innovation. And if something goes wrong, you will know how to value innovation, and there will definitely go something wrong in every IT project. So this leads me to the few customer success cases. Actually, there are 3 of them I would like to share with you. And therefore, I would like to move over to the Canton of Aargau. This customer is interesting for several reasons. One sure is that IT makes application availability transparent by focusing on service rather than infrastructure. What I mean with that, I could phrase it in other words, which means IT makes business and application owner part of the monitoring solution and not part of the problem. So that's been quite an essential thing. That's why I have chosen this customer. To give you some figures about Aargau, it's one of the largest canton in Switzerland. A canton for people in the States is the equivalent of a state, and of the state in the US. And the canton of Aargau maintains over 700 services and applications towards their users. Aargau has been living the service-centric approach for quite some time. Their goals with monitoring solution have always been building transparency for application and business service availability, including the SLAs, as mentioned by Paul before, and quickly implement the procedure they have introduced to business, how they can request applications to monitor. In other words, quickly adapt to new requirements. So what was kind of the obstacle, maybe the issue that Aargau faced? As I said before, they've been living with that for quite some time, but they realized that building and maintaining the sexy UIM NIMs of dashboards became quite cumbersome over time due to the underlying architecture and the complicated effort to include new KPI requirements for the infrastructure, wrap it up into an SLA was quite cumbersome. So today, all is focused at this customer in a consolidated platform. The flexible service model with Ceeview allows a much faster definition of monitoring than before. And that's not a statement from me. According to the customer, the definition of services today are twice as fast than before. Another issue is really the highly responsive and flexible dashboards. It's appreciated by the application and business users likewise. Hopefully you are going to see that in Gütorm's demo later on. And this brings me to the actual implementation, how that looks like, to give you an idea. And here you see the services dashboard from Canton Aargau. Maybe some people will say this doesn't really look sexy. It looks a little bit boring. But actually what it does, it's addressing the needs they had about this, as they call it, a traffic light status display. So everything that they are monitoring in one or the other way, complex services are consolidated and hidden behind those bullets. And they know only red, orange, and green. And as you remember, as I said in the beginning, it's kind of an information dashboard for business and application users. So they just want to know how this works. And so we have monitoring services that start from internet services, go to services where they offer to the residents about phishing and relocation. So it's a huge amount of application and services they monitor that way. This actually brings me to my next customer, and that's another interesting part. It's Zurich Line, and Zurich Line is a transportation authority and covers the whole canton. As we learned before, it's a state of Zurich and transports in an average of about 800,000 passengers daily. By the growth in Switzerland on population, this might be already 900 by now. So remarkable for this use case is that Ceeview is utilized not by the IT department, but the technical maintenance department of the Zurich Line, responsible for all infrastructure to keep transportation running. So these are not really IT people that are using the product. So what are they doing? They are consolidating data from vertical, unique vendor management system, very special ones for platforms, etc. We will see later on. And what that underpins is the flexibility of Ceeview when it comes to build a manager of managers. Together with the integration platform, One Gateway, we could establish a single point of truth. So what was that kind of problem in the beginning, why they were looking into a product like Ceeview? I think the situation before Ceeview was some kind of a typical, as I think in the English term, you call it swivel chair situation, where monitoring status was distributed across different systems, but also across different departments. This situation was really a problem and inhibited a single point of view to coordinate and manage a technician in case of an issue. So how did we achieve the goals at the end? So Ceeview is combined with our integration platform and brings all relevant data from approximately 16 management systems into a consolidated view. The integration has various levels of complexity since not all vendors' systems are easy to access, similar to when you connect Ceeview to cloud applications. So we were facing similar requirements there. Another thing worth to mention in the implementation is that over the time, more and more vendor management systems, like for example, the track switching system, has been moved into the cloud. So it was a logical step to move Ceeview management platform that was initially installed on premises into the cloud. Therefore, the customer is just utilizing an additional Ceeview agent to bridge the gap from on-premises to cloud. So how does that look like? So you have one screenshot here. So Ceeview people didn't allow me to show you more screenshots than just this, just one per use case. So you have to live with that one. I'm trying to express the important part. What you see here is actually that the vendor management products that we integrate in Ceeview are management products for the ticketing machines, for example. They are for the passenger display on the platforms. They are for the rail switching, etc., etc. And we bring this all into a consolidated view. And one nice gadget and really impressed the customer quite is the dynamic dashboarding, due to the fact that some vendor-specific application send alarms, events with GPS positioning. We can show the current location and the movement of buses on a dashboard, as you can see here on the left part of the screen. Okay, so I'm coming to the last one, and that's, we call it in Switzerland, it's SRZ, and SRZ is a protection. It's actually the largest protection and rescue organization across Switzerland, with about 750 people and up to 230 vehicles. SRZ belongs to, as we call it, a blue light organization. A blue light organization, our police and hospital vehicles are using blue lights, and therefore that's where the term comes from, blue light organization. So it includes rescue services, it includes fire departments, even so sometimes fire departments have a red light instead of a blue light, and it goes up to large-scale medical operation in case of a huge disaster. The so-called Operation Control Center is located at the Zurich Airport, and it manages all the incoming emergency calls. Therefore, Ceeview is used to monitor the different components along the process within the responsibility of this Operation Control Center. The process travels across applications like when an alarm is received, they will initiate a squad team, then they will monitor the arrival of the team with its vehicle, up to invoicing the rescue mission at the end. Just to emphasize the importance of what they do, there is a crucial threshold. Sure, it's not called MTBR. No, it's just the time between when the alarm gets registered in the control center until the team arrives at the scene. Times can vary between 90 seconds and 3 minutes at the airport, for example, or 10 minutes for an incident when it's downtown. And so they have these different stages, how fast they have to deliver people on the scene. All this drives the demand for a monitoring system. Demands like flexibility, adaptable interfaces to different data sources, and user-specific dashboards. So the obstacle here has been quite like the previous use cases, and you can summarize it with the missing service-centric architecture to support the full process of the organization I just described. What we did with Ceeview is, with Ceeview, the service-oriented visualization helped us to create organization-specific views. On one hand, there is a technical view on the infrastructure for the operations team. On the other hand, for the manager in charge in this operation control center that I mentioned before, it's a very compressed, filtered status view of relevant services for the process only. because he just needs to have control if something really crucial is not going well. So that brings me to the slide. And once again, it's only one slide, so I had to make a decision on what slide I would choose. And what you see here is just a view on how we can present data combined with SLAs to the user. The overall system is quite complex, involving application dedicated to rescue organization, and therefore those applications are quite capsulated. However, the data collection with Ceeview is done with standard agents, like you know in regular IT, and then the capsulated systems that are dedicated to the rescue organization are sending data directly to Ceeview. So monitoring various applications along the process then includes remote measurement that is relevant for manager in charge. And you see some ideas on the right of the screen that are application like geodata. So they need to know where all their vehicles are, so in case they have an emergency. And as I said before, they are really very time sensitive, that they can direct the correct vehicle to the scene. And then what we also do, that's more IT related, we integrate data from Prometheus that is monitoring the container infrastructure that holds this specific application, and so on. And this slide, in fact, ends my presentation on some of our customer use cases. So I hope I was able to give you an impression what is possible with a service-centric product and the modular architecture. So I would like to close my presentation with a statement once heard from a customer about what you can do with a product. And he replied, "Only your imagination sets the limits." And I feel this fits perfectly into the picture. So with this in mind, I release you from my painful Swiss English voice, and I'd like to hand over to Paul for another customer case presentation. Please, Paul.
Renee, thank you for sharing your fantastic client success stories and how they are benefiting from Ceeview Intelligent Observability. We have one additional success story to share with you today, which I will walk you through, that is focused on optimizing cloud cost and performance. Prof AS is a top Norwegian-based business finder who has north of 2 million website visitors every month to find and evaluate suppliers, customers, and business contacts. Where did Prof need intelligent observability? Well, given their cloud-intensive based business, Prof needs cloud resource and cost observability in order to optimize their business. The advantages of moving to the cloud include a clear cost structure and the ability to pay for resources as you need them. However, without continuous monitoring of cloud consumption and its associated costs can quickly spiral out of control. Prof experienced this firsthand. One of the most difficult things is that there is no easy way to retrieve that data. It is very complex to do so. Ceeview helps Prof overcome cost optimization obstacles and deliver on their goals. Ceeview Cloud Control helps Prof maintain reliable, secure, and cost-efficient cloud solutions by gathering and visualizing the overall cost and performance of their cloud environment. Ceeview is built to address the complexity of managing cloud costs in multi-cloud environments, providing out-of-the-box dashboards and reports with aggregated cost, security, and cloud health data for key stakeholders. As a result, Prof took control of their costs and reduced them by over 50% and has seen estimated annual savings of 1 million Norwegian krone. Let's take a closer look at the numbers in the following slide. The chart on the left shows before and after costs. Shown in the gray bar, in January 2020, Prof had estimate and budget before startup in the cloud at approximately 185,000 krona. Actual costs after just a couple months in the cloud, shown in the red bar in April 2020, were well in excess, reaching approximately 350 krona, nearly double the estimate and budget amount. Costs began falling dramatically after Prof implemented Ceeview as shown in the yellow and green bar in September 2020 and subsequently January 2021. The Ceeview Cloud Cost Control Dashboard on the right is where cost insights come to light and optimization occurs. On the left consumption side of the dashboard, Prof sees budgeted costs in relation to the actual costs incurred, as well as estimated future costs on an annual and monthly basis. Ceeview Advisory Services can be engaged as the advisory score would indicate in the recommendations panel, and Prof gets insights into security risks. On the right services side of the dashboard, a model of the cloud service is shown with alarm status and, very importantly, report section, which is showing 4,000 in monthly savings potential. This is a good time to hand over to my colleague, Mr. Guttorm Husvik, who will give you a demonstration of the Ceeview Cloud Cost Control solution with its flexible configuration and visibility options, as well as our service modeling and monitoring capabilities that René's clients have harnessed to optimize their operations and business.
Thank you, Paul. I have a few demos lined up. The first one is related to Ceeview cost monitoring. And you have all heard Paul's presentation of Ceeview cost monitoring at our customer Prof. Much of the background for adding cost monitoring to Ceeview was the complexity of the cloud vendor's presentation of cost. Possibly feasible to handle for big companies having dedicated staff for this purpose, but pretty complex to understand for small and medium-sized companies. Also for larger customers utilizing more than one cloud vendor, let's say Azure and Amazon, there was a need for a homogeneous presentation across the vendors. And finally, we had requests regarding detecting runaway cost as soon as possible. Many customers in Norway receive invoices on a monthly basis, which is far too late to prevent these unnecessary costs. So these were all drivers for us to implement cost monitoring. And next follows a demo of Ceeview's cost monitoring using a fictitious company called Book Treasure. It produces and sells books, and there is obviously cost related to this process. The first part of cost monitoring is to collect data from the source of cost. And Book Treasure is a dedicated user of Microsoft Azure. So we'll have to go to Azure to find our costs. The data is collected on interval, typically every few hours, and be aware, Azure may delay availability of costs by up to 24 hours. When we collect it, we put it into what we call a cost store. Here we see Book Treasure, that is one cost store. Let's have a look at it. So a cost store consists of multiple models or cost models. Here we have 6 models: advisor, services, up to tag company. We'll focus on the tag company model. The data we see here is tagged in Azure in a hierarchy of tags. First company, that would be Denmark, Finland, etc. Each subsidiary company of Book Treasure. Let's have a look inside Norway. So there we have various departments. For instance, digital production, and digital production have various both external and internal facilitators. The no department tag, that's just that some data doesn't actually have any further tags inside the Norway company, which it probably should have. So that's something that should be corrected in Azure. So you can think of the cost store as a mirror of the cost data living in Azure, and the models as different views or presentations of the cost data. Now, while the cost store's view provide useful information, including drill down of cost, like we just saw, it's still just a source we later use for presentation of cost information. And the next step is to use Ceeview dashboard to present desired information in well, let's say a more stylish manner. We'll use the cost overview dashboard. That'll give us enough to talk about for today. Let's start off with the aggregated information at the top. That's budget and year to date and estimated cost for current month, etc. Pretty intuitive. This untagged year to date, that is actually, in my opinion, the most interesting one. That shows the amount of cost that we haven't been able to tag in a sensible way, so we don't actually know what it's used for. And this is what at least our customers, they are striving to keep this as low as possible because they do want to know what they spend their money on. Anyway, let's move down to the bar chart. In addition to presenting a nice overview over the development of costs inside Book Treasure, it also allows us to figure out who is consuming most of the cost. So if we want to find out which of our subsidiary companies is spending most, we can just do a drill down. And here we see that actually, it's Norway, which is the big spender. And if we are wondering what Norway is spending the money on, we'll do a further drill down. And we see it's digital production that's being used most. And we can do a further drill down in digital production in order to figure out who uses most of the money there. So this is an easy way of figuring out where the costs are being spent. Now, Ceeview Cost Monitoring provide much other functionality: budgeting, alerting, for instance, if you're breaching your budget, distribution of costs between child accounts, and much more. But I'm afraid this is all we had time for. Next topic I'd like to speak a little bit about is Ceeview Service Monitoring. A Ceeview service is normally a model or a mapping of an actual business process or service. And in contrast to infrastructure monitoring, service monitoring focuses on monitoring only aspects which are essential to the state of the service. This obviously gives the advantage of collecting less data, and that the collected data really is important to the monitoring of the service. Another benefit is that service modeling and monitoring makes it easier to show how and where a service is affected by a problem. This is something we'll see in the demo. This demo is based on a fictitious web shop, Treasure Heaven, where we monitor various aspects of usage and infrastructure related to the web shop. So let's have a look. So we'll log into Ceeview as before. This time we'll change to Treasure Heaven account. And here we have a service, or our service, green and nice. Let's have a look at the details of the service. So the service is a set of nodes, or a tree structure of elements really, which each element normally represents a part of a business process. So a web shop here that consists of end-to-end measuring, which again the end-to-end is there's we have different ways of measuring it, or we are doing it in different ways in this scenario. We have what we call a web cycle, which only measures from you logging on to the server and navigate around in the server, and then maybe put something in the chart in the shopping chart, and finally log out. So that's the web cycle, while the full cycles is the same, including that whatever you ordered has been sent to you or is being sent to you. This is simulated user action, so it's not while the real users do the shopping. So you can have a simulated user which do all the actions, and then we monitor that user to see that things perform within a certain time. Like it shouldn't take more than, let's say, 1 second to navigate from the login to the overview over products in the web shop, something like that. Another thing that this service represents is the various internal processes or services inside the business process again. So we might have a warehouse where you have an inventory system, you do order and shipping, you have a payment system for distributing the goods that the user has ordered, etc. So all these processes may be monitored and will affect the state of the service. And finally, we have the infrastructure supporting the web shop. Might be something like Windows servers, databases, load balancers, whatever. We'll just treat both processes and the infrastructure element as black boxes. We don't care really about what happens inside them. They might provide states controlling whether the service is up or down, but we don't go into the detail here. We'll have a brief look at the web cycle to see what goes on there. So in web cycle there is various test points or tests that are being executed. So we have the login, the navigate to a product, adding the product to a chart, we pay for it, and we verify that we actually have the order as we expect it to be. If we get through this correctly, and it doesn't take more than, let's say, we can have a look at what we think adding an item to a chart should take. Okay, so we have set, or I have set the limit of 10 milliseconds. That's very quick, but it's just simulated data anyway, so it doesn't really matter for this demo. So as long as it takes less than or equal to 10 milliseconds, we are happy. If it takes more, that will be seen as an issue, and this element will be turned red, which indicates it's not working correctly. That will affect the service model again in whatever manner we configure it to. And the default manner, which is what I'm using for this demo, is that any problem will cause the service to go down, or our representation of the business service goes down, turns red. And you should be able to see fairly easily what part of the service is causing the service to fail and the reason for it, as we will see in the demo. Let's leave the edit mode and return to one of the service viewer modes. This should be good. So everything is looking good. Orders are pouring in and service model is gray. That seems to be pretty boring. So let's do something about that. So now I've added a Slack panel so we can see if we get any notifications if some problems appear in the service. And I'm gonna simulate that adding to a chart, the user simulation for adding to a chart takes too long time. So let's have a look. Okay, the service went down and we received a message in Slack, just like we wanted it to. So let's have a look what we see in the service model. Does that help us to understand where the problem is? Let's start at the top. Well, the top might be that Slack actually tells us wherever we are that there is an issue. And I decided to just send a message about the service going down, not about the details about why it went down. This is something we obviously could do differently. So I know the service is down. I rush to my PC or open my mobile maybe to browse to the service view we're seeing here. I see that the service is down. I say, okay, the problem is under end-to-end, and it's actually the web cycle sub-process which is causing a problem. And if I look to the right here, I'll see it's adding to the chart that is the issue. So that's one way of figuring out what the problem is. The model lends itself very nicely to illustrating where such an issue exists. And remember, a service model can be much more complicated than this one. Another way would be to to check in the in the event summary, where you will get an alert telling you that this test has failed, and that it belongs to the web cycle element, and that. So there is various ways of quickly getting to the cause of the service failing. Right, I'll remove the Slack window and let's go back to the top view of the service. Here we see the problem, the last problem. We can switch the service up again. Just a second. Okay. Next user simulation indicates that the service now is behaving correctly, and we start and the service model turned green again. Service is up. Closely tied to services, we have SLAs, or service level agreements. So a service may have multiple agreements, and for this service I have two. I have a day SLA and I have a month SLA. We'll just check one of them, the month SLA, for instance. So this shows me a historic summary of how the SLAs has behaved the last few months, even further behind if I'm interested. And I see the current view of the SLA and so on. But what's interesting about creating the SLA is that it builds directly on top of the service. So it's very easy to create an SLA, and if you change the service, you don't necessarily need to do any changes to the SLA. So next step, we'll return back to the service. So we will have a look at the dashboarding for dashboards as a way of showing information about services. Normally you don't sit watching a service in the service viewer as we have. You quite often have many services, so you don't have time to do that. Maybe you'll visualize your services in dashboards. So that's one way of doing it. And you probably also might want to send some report to the users or the owners of the service. And I created a very simple report here. It's generated, should be typically generated once a month for the last quarter or the last 3 months. And it shows some basic information about how the SLA has behaved, the service has behaved last month or last quarter, and how the SLA has behaved, and some other information, whatever you really want to see about your service. So let's move to a dashboard. And we'll use this one, parcels 2. So we recognize the service model. We have a an aggregated view of all the parcels that are currently in transit, sent from the web shop and on its way to the customers. We have a map here where in the center we have, well, in the center there is Oslo in Norway, but slightly outside Oslo, that's the capital of Norway, we have our warehouse where parcels will be sent from. And everything is green and dandy as it always is when nothing is happening. But what we'll do is we'll simulate that we'll start sending out parcels, and we'll see how this affects this dashboard. Right. So I just started the simulator, so we should see that some parcels are starting to being sent from the warehouse. It's the green dots. The green color actually just shows that there's no issues with the parcels. So what we pretend is that each parcel has a GPS tracker of some kind, sending both position and the state of the parcel. For cheap parcel, or for when you have many parcels which does not have high value, you probably wouldn't be able to afford it. But for bigger parcels, it might be an issue. And as we see here, one of the parcels turned yellow. There's probably some issue with it. I forgot to see what the alarm was, but there was it was related to, there was pretty wavy and choppy out on the ocean. And here we have a parcel. It's got the magic parcel to Kurt, which has a problem. I am droning, it says. That's not good. Right, so that has an issue. Sooner or later, this simulation will restart, and we'll see all the parcels. Well, there's actually only 4 parcels in this test. Will return back to the warehouse, and it will start again. It's just a simulation, but the Ceeview part of it is real. There's nothing fake about that. It's only the posting of GPS information which is actually simulated. So this is things you can very easily put into a dashboard using Ceeview. It took me about 10 minutes to build this dashboard. So it's not a very complicated thing to do. Right, so let's return to reports and let that end the demonstration. I mentioned that I've written a report which is posted periodically. It's a fairly simple one. Shows a little bit of service information, a bit of SLA, etc. If we can preview it for, let's say, the last quarter, and it looks like this. The nice thing about reports in Ceeview is you can either run them on demand, and as I did now with the preview, or you can schedule it for delivery periodically using a calendar like I've done here. In addition to sending it to users using email, you can also send it to as a Teams document, or you can send it to a service, which was actually what I did when you saw this report the first time, or the result of the report, because I have set the service as the recipient of the report. So in that way you can keep all history of all reports generated for the service together with the service in an easy way, like just show you again. So then we find the report and underneath the document tab, and after a while, after some quarters, you will have lots of reports here with different dates, obviously. Right, so that was Ceeview service monitoring, or it was actually a very, very brief introduction to Ceeview monitoring. So that completes my last demonstration. I hope it's been useful for you and that you'll be interested in learning more about Ceeview. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us today in our webinar. We hope you found it very helpful and informative. As I reflect on the webinar, I see a few key takeaways. Number one, Ceeview was the best choice for Ascentix and its customer needs due to differentiating technical and soft factors. The technical factors included service model architecture, modularity, and extensibility. The soft factors included understanding of customer needs and a responsive attitude. I feel these factors would be equally important to your organization. Secondly, our team has delivered against a multitude of other customer requirements spanning 3 generations of successful solutions. Most importantly, we pride ourselves on being a customer-centric organization. We would love to be your vendor of choice and would be grateful for your consideration. As a next step towards achieving a more optimized business, please reach out to our Ceeview team to schedule a consultation. We would be very pleased to help you create and implement a solution that works for you and brings clarity to your business value contribution. Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to hearing from you soon.